Hello everyone and welcome back to JavaScript lessons on Codecademy. So last time we talked about for loops and other things such as the array or list, whatever you want to call it. So today we're going to be still looking at loops, but instead of looking at for loops, we're going to be looking at the while loop. So a reminder for the syntax of a for loop, it looks something like this. The counter variable I starts at start and stops looping when it reaches end. But if you didn't know ahead of time when to stop looping, then what would you do? Say for example you wanted to keep choosing playing cards from a deck until you get a spade. You don't know how many cards you'll need to choose, so a for loop won't work. Neither would a random, because sometimes with a random you wouldn't get the correct answer. But with a while loop you can achieve this. So let's check out the while loop in the editor. And it's telling us to see if we can figure out what it does. So we have a variable called coin face, which is math.floor. I don't know what floor does. I know what random does, so it multiplies a number by 2. And then I guess we are going to figure out what floor does, hopefully. And then while coin face equals 0. So a while loop works in a way similarly to an if statement, but instead of doing it just once, it's going to be doing it all the time until the statement is false. So until this becomes false, it's always going to be looping into whatever this is. So it's always going to be doing console.log heads up, flipping again, and making a new variable, coin face equals again the same thing as up here, which I don't know what it does. And then once it's done finishing with the loop, it's going to print whatever's outside of the loop, which in this case is done flipping. So let's save and submit and actually see what the lesson is. While syntax. So the while loop is ideal when you want to use a loop, but you don't know how many times you'll have to execute that loop, as we discussed before. In the example you just saw, the computer was randomly flipping a coin. While the coin came up heads, when coin face equaled 0, it would flip again and it would stop flipping once it got tails, when coin face was 1. Since the flip was random, we didn't know ahead of time how many loops we'd need. So, the syntax for a while loop, not wild loop, I don't know what I'm saying, looks like this. So you have while and then condition. So while this condition is met, do something. Once it isn't met, then exit the loop. As long as the condition evaluates to true, the loop will continue to run. As soon as it's false, it'll stop. When you use a number in a condition, as we did earlier, JavaScript understands 1 to mean true and 0 to mean false. So if you do while and in the parentheses you put 1, it's just going to mean while true, which is going to be an infinite loop, basically, and it's never going to stop. You want to avoid that. Unless you have a break and it actually can get to that break somehow, which we will discuss later on. So since you've already mastered for loops, this simpler syntax should be a breeze for you. And I hope it is. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments down below. So let's try it for ourselves. Complete the while loop in the editor so it will print out I'm learning while loop. So I'll just copy that and paste it wherever it's needed. Oh, actually, it's already there, never mind. Do this by adding the condition between the parentheses. Don't change line 5 or you could get an infinite loop. So this is line 5. And what does our condition need to be? Complete the while loop in the editor so it will print out I'm learning while loops. So while understand. And then, yep, there we go. So let's actually explain what this does. You make a variable called understand and you assign true. And then you're saying while true. So you're basically creating a statement, an infinite while loop. So always do this. But then because you print this out and then understand gets changed. And then the condition evaluates to false, so therefore while is exited. But at first while is true, so the condition is evaluated to true, so that's why we enter the loop. Hopefully that makes sense. For now, let's move on. A fellow of infinite loops. Okay, let's see. We mentioned infinite loops in the previous exercise. If you give a while loop a condition that is true and you don't build in a way for that condition to possibly become false, the loop will go on forever and your program will crash. No good. If you're doing it through a browser like I am, then you either will crash your browser or will just get plugin not working pop-up or something. That's what happened to me, I think, last time. So to prevent this from happening, you always need a way to ensure the condition between your while parentheses can change. And if this is an actual program, you always want to do that. You never want an infinite loop. Or that you can use while true, but you need to make sure that you either change that true to false, like we did in the previous program, or you use break, which, as I said before, we will discuss later on. So you'll see the same code from the last exercise in the editor to the right. Only we've taken out the part that changes the loop's condition. So it's telling us not to run the code because it's not going to work, or actually it's going to work but it's going to do something bad. You'll have to reload the window to stop the infinite loop. Instead, change the value of understand to something other than true, such as false, on line 6, so the loop will exit. So on line 6, so like we did previously, but instead of them doing it for us, we do it for ourselves. So understand equals false, and there we go. So we tell it enter this while loop because the condition is true, and then we're telling it no, now we want the condition to be false, and once it gets to the end of here, it goes back to here, checks is the condition true, no, it's false, so it just exits the while loop. So let's move on. Brevity is the soul of programming, whatever that means. You may have noticed that when we give a variable the boolean value true, we check that variable directly. We don't bother with triple equal sign. For instance, you have variable bool equals true, while bool do something. So yeah, is the same thing as variable bool equals true, and while bool equals true, then do something. So both of these things are exactly the same thing, because if this whole condition, if whatever is in between the brackets evaluates to true, then it's definitely going to be true, so it's just going to be done. But the first one is faster to type, so you want to use that because it's also more efficient. Get in the habit of typing exactly as much as you need and no more. If you can, even shrink your programs. If you happen to be using numbers, as we did earlier, you could even do var my number equals 1 and while my number. So as we said before, 1 in programming means true or on, but in this case true, and 0 means 0, off, or false. So if you put a 0 there, then the while loop is never going to be executed, or whatever is in the while loop is never going to be executed. So we've written the less succinct. I don't know what that means. I am not English, I need to look it up in the dictionary, but I don't think it's going to matter much. Corrected to the more elegant version. So we can do 1 and 0 there. And we don't actually want that. Well, we've actually defined it as a bool. We can define it as an integer, but this should work anyway. If you want to do it the other way, you can literally just do here true and here false. Let's copy that and reload to show you guys. There we go, and paste, and if you save and submit, it's the exact same thing. And it makes more sense because if you're checking for bool, then you're probably checking for false or true. Although 1 and 0 could also count as boolean. Depending on what you like, you can do either thing. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it so that others can learn as well. If you have any questions, also feel free to ask in the comments down below. I will be answering them as soon as possible. So until next time, thank you so much for watching again, and goodbye.